mga ka-ATI at Home! Welcome po muli sa ikalawang episode ng ating ATI at Home seminar. Exciting nakita, a live seminar on free-range chicken production. Marami po ba kayong natutunan sa ating unang episode? Sa pagkakataon pong ito, matatalakay natin ang mga sumusunod. Una, tamang pagkain at pagtitimpla nito. Pangalawa, mga karaniwang sakit at pagtugon dito. Pangatlo, mga techniques at tips sa pangangalaga ng free-range chicken. Pang-apat, digital platform. Pang-lima, economics at market linkage sa free-range chicken production. Muli, narito po ang ating tagapagsalita, si Ginoong Henry James Season ng All Seasons Nature Farm.
Alright, magandang araw ulit sa kanila sa ating episode 2 ng ating live seminar on free-range chicken production. No, so for this afternoon, we'll be talking about a few other things in terms of topics. No, so primarily more on feeds. We talk about feeds and nutrition ng chickens. We'll talk about troubleshooting in case you encounter diseases or problems with your flock. We'll also take a look at the economics of production, no, of free-range chickens for your reference. Okay, so simulan na natin. So we want to break down ano yung nutrients in our feed formulation. Okay, so definitely we have the basics. So there's carbohydrates to provide us energy. No, so the same lang naman to sa nutrition ng tao. No, so for living things, for livestock, it's a matter of what is the combination of these nutrients. So carbohydrates, you're talking about fats and lipids, di ba? Ang source natin for fats, by the way, is normally copra meal, no? Copra meal. And for carbohydrates, it's usually rice bran or corn bran, all right? Or we sometimes use pollard, no? Or wheat pollard, okay, to create the base for our feed. No? And then, okay, so itong copra meal na to, usually, ano tawag dito, binibili nila po to sa feed supply. And then for protein naman, so we have a variety of sources. Ang pinaka-common dyan is actually soya meal. No? Fish meal is as well used from time to time if it is accessible for you. Diba? Or if you want to really go natural naman, you can make use of duckweed or azola, no, as your base for protein. No? So for duckweed po kasi, the protein rating yan is around 32%. No? Of course, soya is still the more packed one at around 40 plus, no? But duckweed, given it's usually free, kailangan nyo lang alagaan siya, it's a good trade-off. No? And then of course, minerals, kailangan din natin lagyan ng mga minerals. Normally, CRH ang ginagamit natin, or carbonized rice hull, lime, and then rock salt. So at a minimum, kung wala pong available na CRH or limestone, at least lagyan po natin ng konting rock salt, no? Ang ating feed. And then of course, vitamins, normally ito po yung ating fish amino acids, fermented fruit juice at fermented plant juice. So these ones are actually given as part of creating yung ating feed mix. And then of course, ito yung microbials. So you have two options in coming up with the source for microbials. One is you can buy, all right, ready-made concoctions that are sources for your microbes. Pwede rin pong Yakult. Okay, that's also possible. All right, or you go the old-fashioned way. Yun yung nagpapalagay po tayo ng white mold. All right, sa kanin at inalalagay po natin yan sa ilalim ng parang clump ng kawayan, no? And then you actually wait for at least a week for that for the fungi to or the fungus to take hold before you use that. All right, as part of your feed mix. Okay, so the structure po natin, no? Structure of chickens differ as they age, no? So you talk about structure, flesh, and then fat, no? So the feed of our chickens vary as they actually grow older, no? So iba yung requirements, nutritional requirements ng chick natin at iba ang requirements ng manok na scheduled to be slaughtered na, no? All right, so just going through it, no? Again, this will be part of the handouts. All right, Itong starter feed natin is actually used for brooding from 1 to 21 days. No, just take note, okay, of the rough ratios natin. So, rice bran po, rice or corn bran, or again, wheat pollard for your carbohydrates. No, around 23 kilograms yon. Um, Importante pong merong copra meal. So it's about 8 kilograms for your fats and lipids. And then in this stage of growth of your chickens, importante that we focus on structure, all right, building bones. That's the reason why you have a fairly high ratio of soya meal or protein source, no? Um, and then of course, usually naman po itong vitamins, minerals, and then for the probiotic natin, uh, is usually constant naman throughout the life cycle of your chickens. No, please take note because um, your mixture is bioavailable. It's a living living thing, so to speak. Yung ating hinahalong nutritious na feeds natin. Please make sure that you make use of non-chlorinated water. Alright? Kasi pag ginamitan po natin yun ng tap water straight from the tap, mamamatay po sa chlorine ng inyong supply ng tubig yung mga microbials natin na nilalagay sa feed mix, no. At it is important that the microbes are available to ferment, no, ferment these feed stuff. So that's actually for your brooding stage, no? So again, 1 to 21 days. Alright. So during this time, it's ad libitum po ang feeding natin. Ito ang ibig sabihin lang po nun ay pasawa po siya. Alright? And normally, chicks po as they grow older is around 15 grams of feed per head per day. Alright? So again, this is usually well spread throughout the day. Every week, dadagdagan po natin siya ng around 5 to 6 grams po. No? 5 to 6 grams. Again, this is just a guideline. Pag nakikita nyo marami pong tira, ibig sabihin kailangan nyo pong bawasan. No? So there's no hard and fast rule po for this. If nakikita nyo ubos parate ng ubos, ibig sabihin malamang kulang po siya ang inyong bigay ng feed. Okay. Now, for starter feeds, ito yung 22 to 32. 22 to 32 days. Right? Ito yung hardening. Ito usually yung medyo ini-expose natin siya sa outside world. Okay? So, in this case, you take a look that your soya meal or your protein source actually reduces. And then, umaakit naman po yung ating carbohydrates. Primarily because they have a lot of space to actually run around. Carbohydrates is really the energy source of your chickens, and therefore if they run around a lot, then in this case, kailangan nila ng more energy, no? Again, the fat and lipid component of copra meal is still the same at 8 kilograms. Ngayon, bago nyo po ihalo to, usually kasi ang copra meal po ay buo-buo yan. Basagin po natin. Kailangan po siyang igiling, or at least kailangan mas maliliit siya para mas mabilis mag-breakdown. No? Mag-breakdown during fermentation. Again, if you take a look at the rest of the recipe po natin ng ating feed, parehas lang naman po yung vitamins, minerals, and probiotic ratios. Alright, so in this case, ayan po, umakyat na siya to around 25 to 50 grams of consumption po of feeds per day during hardening. We feed our flock twice a day. Early in the morning and then around 4:30 to 5 o'clock po habang meron pang araw. That's the second time that we do feeding. Now at noon time, binibigyan po natin sila ng merienda or silage, no? Usually forage po, nagkukumpay po kami ng tricantera or indigofera, or even kakawate. Anything that's actually green, titigisahan naman po yan ng mga manok natin. Okay. And then finally, finisher feed formulation po natin. So in this case, again, a larger component po of rice bran. Fairly constant naman po yan. Copra meal is still, the lipids is still at around 8 kilograms, and then soya meal at around 25. So pretty much the same. So this is until market. Again, just to review, no, for broilers, it's up to 75 days po. Okay? So, pero sa amin po, ang practice po namin, at 60 to 65 days, we start slaughtering them already. Magaling po yung technician namin, nag-go over po sa weight kapag maghihintay po kami ng more than 56 to 60 days. No? Umaabot, lumalampas po ng 1.5 kilograms. No? Again, if you're going to estimate the dressed weight of your chickens, mag-subtract po kayo sa live weight ng around 200 to 250 grams. And that's usually the dressed weight of your chickens. No? Inclusive of the lamang loob, no? Or the innards. Okay? Ayan, so for finisher feed, ayan, so about 100 grams of feed per day. This is usually during the last week before slaughter. Again, the feed is given twice a day lang po. No? And then, silage po, usually yan, kasi mas mataas ng energy requirement sila. Instead of just the noon, binibigyan namin siya ng merienda sa umaga at hapon. So, parang tao lang po, no? May merienda na rin sila. Okay, so, to do this, di ba, you need to mix your feed stuff, no, appropriately and ferment them. So, bakit po kailangan ng fermentation? The nutritional value of your feed stuff drastically increases when it is fermented. No? Likewise, if there are toxins within that, all right, toxins within the feed stuff, that's actually neutralized by the good bacteria inside our feed mixture. So that's the reason why po we put a lot of good bacteria into our feed mix, because we want the good bacteria to be a lot more compared to your bad bacteria. No? So hindi naman po kasi matatanggal yung possibility na yung bad bacteria po natin there's an existence of bad bacteria on your raw materials, no? So that's the reason why we need, yun ang naman yun, di ba? More good bacteria means better fermentation. Better fermentation means better digestibility for your feed stuff, and then the nutrition value really goes up, no? In fact, we've had a chance to get our feed mixes analyzed at the laboratory, no, especially yung aming yung sa aming grower, and it's actually comparable po yung nutritional content compared to commercial feeds. Okay. All right, so we have a video here, no? So I'll play the video just to share with you how we do our mixes at the farm. This is primarily for layer feeds. Okay. All right. So normally what we do is we prepare our mixture, no? The white bags, no? The white bags po are actually pollard po 'yan. No? Wala sa area po namin mahirap po mag-procure ng rice bran or ipa, no? Or darak D1, no? Again, kung gagamit kayo ng darak or or rice bran, make sure it's called D1, okay? Yung D1 yan yung pino at yun yung parang amoy gatas. Okay? Huwag po kayong gagamit ng D3. Ang D3 po ay halos rice hull na yan, no? Nakakabusog siya pero halos 4% lang po ang protein niyan, no? Sayang lang po ang inilalagay natin sa sa ating nutritious feed mix kung around 4% lang ang protein niyan. Ang D1 po ay nasa around 9 to 10%. Again, it's not as comparable to your soya or other dedicated sources of protein, but definitely mas digestible po ang D1 compared sa fiber na nasa D3, no? Or yun yung tinatawag na gaspang. Okay. So let's continue. All right. So yan po, so piniprepare na po nila yung mga tao namin yung yung mga mixes. So ayan, this is actually the soya meal. So we still make use of soya meal, no? There are individuals who say, well, hindi siya organic. Well, tama po, no? Dahil ang soya po ay generally GMO based po yan. But having said this, we're talking about free-range chickens, and this is basically on the context of naturally growing chickens, no? Hindi namin kine-claim that our chickens are actually organic. So they're all naturally raised. All right. Now, in this case po, if you take a look, there's actually some forage that we mix into our feed mixture, no? Some growers would like to keep their mixture a bit more dry, no? So parang dry feed stuff lang. Kami, because we want our mixes to contain some level of forage, no? Para po sa mga minerals 'yun, no? That's there in the uh, sa plant sources natin. Sorry. Let me, oops. Balikan po natin yung video. Okay. Yan. So the forage is actually there to provide minerals po, no? And then of course, for layers po, importante yung forage para maging yellow po, maging deep yellow ang kanilang yolks. Now this one po is actually copra meal, no? That's actually copra meal. Uh, and then ito pong huling nilalagay nila ay yung pollard po yan. That's actually wheat pollard. Okay. So baka may magtanong bakit ang laki-laki nung ang dami-dami nung feed. All right? Um, this is actually mixing po for the number of layers that we need to feed po in the farm. Okay? So the total po amount po nito is for the entire batch is probably closer to around 400 kilograms po, no? Around 400 kilograms worth of feed. That is actually worth feed for our chickens for maybe about 4 to 5 days lang po yan. No? So obviously that's too much for your initial requirement. Okay? So kailangan lang po natin siguro tingnan niyo lang po yung ratios nung ating na pinakita natin kanina sa slides, no? Um, Hindi po kailangan na ganyang karami ang inyong initial mix, otherwise po baka po kasi masira. No? So ayan po, so fino-fold po natin yan, or folding and mixing the feed stuff, no, para lang pong semento. Alright, initial mix po is dry, but as soon as these are actually mixed, no, so para lang semento, lalagyan po yan ng liquid sa gitna. Okay. So naglalagay lang po ng parang basin, alright? Now, ito po, if you take a look, yan, let me pause that. Yan po, this is actually the source of our of microbes, no. Yan po yung tinatawag na imas, alright? And so that's where the microbials are located, and then dinadalit lang po namin sila sa water. Okay? Then from that, babasahin po natin yung mixture. Alright. So, ayan na po. Tuloy-tuloy lang po yung pagbasa natin dyan. And then this one is actually salt naman po. So, we provide, so yan rin po yung source ng minerals namin and vitamins. So, in this case, because we did put some plant forage in there, that's also the source of vitamins and minerals for our feed mix. Ayan. Tapos, ano na lang po yan. I-mix na lang po ng thoroughly. No? No, as the feed mix, if you take a look, as the feed mix, as the feed mix po, nahahalo siya ng tama. So, balikan lang po natin ng konti yun. Ayan. Nababasa na rin naman po siya. Sa bilis. Ayan. Alright. Kita niyo nagbubuo-buo na siya kapag basa. Di ba? It shouldn't be thoroughly wet po. No? So, dapat tamang-tamang moisture lang po. If it's too wet, mas prone po siya na masira po yung ating mix. Alright? So ayan po, nilalagay lang namin siya sa blue containers. Itong containers na po yan. So let me go back there. Yung blue containers po yan ay meron pong takip. So dapat po ay anaerobic fermentation, which means absence of air. So kailangan po tightly sealed siya kasi pagka nilagay lang niyo po siya sa ganyang vat na open air po, mas malatas po ang chances na masira ang kanilang feed mix. No? So again, this is anaerobic fermentation, which means absence of air. So yung pong mga ganyan, nagbabalak po gumawa ng sarili ng feed at ilagay po sa mga ganitong klaseng containers, make sure meron po silang metal lock. No? So meron pong cover at metal lock. No, as soon as the mix is done, kailangan po natin i-seal yung ating feed mixture. No? Okay. Tapos ito po yung example. Sorry, cut kagad siya. Balikan po natin. Ayan. So, ito po, So pag tumatayo siyang ganyan, the moisture content there is around 30 to 40%, which is just right. No? Now, how would you know if your feed mixture fermented properly? So, pwede nyo po siyang amuyin. Kapag sweet sour smell, tama po yung fermentation and you could use that to feed your chickens. Pag amoy panis po and foul smelling, ibig sabihin nanalo po ang bad bacteria. Kulang po yung nilagay natin na good bacteria and that means sira po yung buong batch. So, importante po, especially if you are mixing in larger quantities, make sure that you add in the microbials. Hindi lang po tubig na plain ang ilalagay nila. Kailangan may microbials. And second, you need to make sure that your containers are sealed properly. No? They have to be airtight. Pag meron po kasing nasisinipan po ng hangin, maaaring may kasamang bad bacteria at maaaring manalo po sila. No? Manalo sila, masisira po yung ating feed mix. Ayan po. Alright. So, pwede naman pong hawakan yan at pwedeng amuyin. Okay. Alright. So, yung pong ginawa natin na yan, ay tinatawag pong mash yan. So, mash. It's actually a feed mash po siya. No? Meron po kasing type, yung tinatawag na crumble, yan po ay usually heat-treated po yan. Normally, yan po ang nanggagaling sa mga feed mills, together with the pellets, the pelletized one. So, the pelletized one is actually heated plus formed into pellets. No? But for your own purpose, again, the chicken feed mash is actually more than okay, no, for our requirements. Okay, so 2 weeks po, again 14 days. Huwag niyo pong i-shortcut, no? The longer it takes to ferment our feed, the more nutritious it is. Diba? You are shortchanging yourself if you use to ferment it by 1 week lang. Ngayon, ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Para hindi po kayo maubusan ng feed, kailangan yung mag-ferment ahead of time. No? Based on the number of chickens and a projected volume po that you require over the next 10 days. Kunyari, kailangan yung lulutuin nilang fermented feed would be appropriate, no? According to the requirement. Okay, so example lang po ng feeding natin. Ayan po. So again, we still make use of feed trays po. No? This is actually our layer chickens po yan. So, ang ginagamit po naming feed trays is a bit better po, no? So, kawayan lang po yun, no? Para hindi na sila bibili ng mga plastic. Actually, for us, mas nagtatagal po talaga yung bamboo feeding trays. Let's go ahead. Ayan. So, drinking water po. So, drinking water naman, ayan, yung ipo po nilalagyan po ng beneficial bacteria, no, ng probiotic. This actually strengthens their immune system. So, in the natural way of growing things, we do not use antibiotics, no, na ahead of time. So, hindi po ginagamitan ng antibiotics as preventive, no? Mali po 'yun. Ang nangyayari po kasi niyan kapag binibigyan niyo ng antibiotics ang manok or any living livestock or livestock ng antibiotics up front, nagkakaroon na ng resistance yung mga bacteria that's there who survive, no? Which means when you need the effectivity of the antibiotic, hindi na po siya gagana, no? So this also creates resistance in microbes, no? If antibiotics are not used properly. So on our end, it's really more again trying to have better or more beneficial bacteria inside the gut of our chickens. No, so again, this is your probiotic mixture. Nilalagyan lang po natin, kinakanawan lang po natin ng konting microbials yung water. No, likewise, because yung pong beneficial bacteria breaks down ammonia and nitrates in the gut, hindi po masyadong maamoy or nawawala po yung amoy ng ating chickens. Yung feces po or yung ipot ng manok kapag dumudumi sila, no? Which is also another a good effect of making use of microbes. Yun lang po. Okay, so one thing lang. So if you intend to use yung ipot po for biogas digesters, hindi na po siya pwede. Kasi sa loob pa lang ng manok, ni-breakdown na po yung kinakailangan for biogas. no? So wala na po 'yun. Okay? So if your intent is to use it for your biogas digester, then wag po kayong gagamit ng probiotic mixture for the water, no? Then again, if you use that for your natural feed, ganun rin po 'yun. So technically, for our free-range chickens, yung dumi niya hindi pwedeng gamitin sa biogas. Okay, so troubleshooting po muna tayo, no? So ano po yung mga common problems natin? Again, these things, most of these uh, items na i-discuss ko sa inyo na experience po namin over the past 7, 8, 9 years po of ranging chickens, no? So, pag sinabi pong mortality, that's actually the cause of death. Okay? So, upfront, all right, extreme weather conditions like usually po 'yan bagyo, 'yan. Hindi po maiiwasan. Lalo na kapag sumisilong yung inyong mga pen sa ilalim ng puno ay nalalaglagan po ng branches, no? Ah, Mahina rin po ang manok sa rapid change in weather. So, yung papalit-palit po ang weather no, usually mainit kunyari sa araw pagkatapos biglang bagsak ang temperature sa gabi. No, normally you'll need to um, make sure na yung inyong housing pen ay may mga tabing po, no, para at least dahan-dahan po ang pagbagsak ng o pag-akyat ng temperature. No? You need to control that. Um, And then, of course, yung immune boosters natin, that's the reason why we use probiotics. And then, a lot of things can happen in the ranging house. Ang common sakit po ng manok ay sipon. Okay? So, ito po, yung extreme photo naman dito, no, meron talagang, yung malaki na, no, yung mata niya, ibig sabihin, nag-puff up na yung kanyang, yung sinuses. No? Ito po yung ito yung talagang kailangan yung tingnan. Kapag ang manok po ay mahina at matamlay, tapos parang nanlulumo, okay? Ihiwalay nyo siya kagad. Okay? So, ang pinaka unang-unang gagawin dyan ay ibukod nyo ang may sakit. Okay? Ilagay nyo po sa isang quarantine area. Well, alam nyo na naman kung ano ibig sabihin ng quarantine, di ba? Sa mga panahong to. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kailangan ilayo nyo siya. Ano yung tamang layo ng inyong clinic? Okay? So, yung tawag na clinic or recovery area, at least 20 meters po from your main ranging area. Okay? At least 20 meters. Again, at least 20. Kung 50 yan or sa kabilang ibahin nyo ilagay siya, even better. So, the farther you can put your sick birds, the better. Kasi po, ang vector po niyan ay wind, no? Kapag may hangin, yung hangin papunta po doon sa inyong main ranging area, baka po mahawa pa rin. So again, colds or sipon. Okay, so there's two ways of doing it officially, and merong ginger, garlic, and chili mixture, no? So it's also called Oriental Herb Nutrients. So kailangan po ng bawang, luya, sili. Of course, yung molasses po, importante yan dahil yan po ang magiging feed po for our EMAs or for your microbials, no? That will actually help in breaking down the mixture, no, to component parts. May cocoa vinegar rin po yan, no? So cocoa vinegar as well. So parang maging slightly acid po yung ating mixture. No, which is basically inhospitable po ang acid kasi for our bad microbes, no. Okay. So yan, ihalo lang naman po yan, no? Kailangan po dikdikin yung bawat ingredient pagkatapos saka po ihalo sa water and then yung ating microbials, no? Tapos usually po fini-ferment po namin to ng 7 days. Alright. So although dito sa mixer is actually 2 weeks, again, at least 7 days kung nagmamadali po. Pero ang pinaka maximum effect po niyan is fermentation for 2 weeks. Okay? Alright. So the second one naman is para rin pong sa tao, 'di ba? Kapag sinisipon o kaya inuubo. Ito naman po yung ating herbal mixture naman po. It's oregano, lagundi, bamboo leaves po yung mura, all right? And then of course may chili pa rin naman siya. Chili and then 2 cups of water. Okay? So again, didikdikin po natin lahat 'to, no? Didikdikin po natin. Ang pagbigay po nito usually para makainom po lahat is nagwi-withdraw, no? So there's actually withdrawal po ng water. Pagkatapos para siguradong kung kailan kailangan i-deliver po yung mixture, uhaw po yung mga manok natin. Tapos saka sila iinom. Kasama na po yung ating herbal treatment. So, again, this one, you can use this even if wala pong sipon ang manok to beef up their immune system. Hindi po to katulad ng antibiotics na kailangan kung kailan lang may sakit saka kailangan gamitin. These are all natural uh, concoctions. Um, wala pong overdose dyan. No? Wala pong overdose for these mixtures. Alright? Now, the third medication po rito, although hindi ko pa nilagay, is kung talagang hirap na po talaga yung manok, kailangan na pong kailangan na pong katayin yun para hindi po naman masayang. No? So that's actually the third medication. No? Slaughter the bird before it actually dies. Ngayon, sabihin nyo, pwede pa bang katayin kapag namatay na yung po tinatawag nating double dead? And that's actually dangerous po. No? Hindi po dapat ginagawa yun. Okay, so again, habang buhay, katayin na kung talagang sa tingin niyo ay wala nang pag-asa yung manok. Alright, cannibalism naman po. So cannibalism in chickens happens in very close quarters, no? Ibig sabihin kulang po ang inyong ranging area dahil sila po ay parating nagsisiksikan. Medyo ang chickens po natin ay very particular about their private space. Alright? So um, kapag kulang sila sa ranging space, makikipagtukaan na yan sa mga kasama to get their space, di ba? Saka likewise po, kung halimbawa meron silang, kasi very attractive po sa kanila ang color red. No? So if there are wounds, they'll start picking on it, di ba? Likewise, pag parati pong gutom ang ating mga chickens, yan, aakyat po yung incidences ng cannibalism. So, for these points, no, merong wound yung manok. Kung may wound yung manok, kailangan nyo pong ilagay siya sa recovery area. Alright, sa recovery area. So, ihiwalay nyo na yung merong may sugat. Second, ayun, titingnan nyo, tama ba yung ratio ninyo? Again, ano yung tamang ratio natin for ranging space? For us, we use 3 birds to a square meter para talagang maluwag, no? Pero the standard says 10 to a square meter. Eh. Medyo, tingin ko medyo sikip na yun. No? So sa tatlo, okay lang. No? Siguro naman meron kayong enough ranging space sa kung saan kayo mag-aalaga. And then finally, yung tingin na huli na lang is actually kung meron pa ring incidents ng cannibalism, baka po kulang yung kanilang pakain. Ayan po. So again, ito po, no? Normally po nangyayari yan sa likod, nagsisimula ang cannibalism sa likod, just before the tail po. No? In its worst incidents, makikita niyo po ang entrails po, ang innards ng manok ay nakalabas na. That's actually the worst case for cannibalism. Ayun. So, before pa lang mangyari yun, ilayo nyo na po yung ating may sakit o may mga wounded na mga manok. Alright? So, again, this is discouraging cannibalism. That's what I discussed earlier. No? Okay. Merong mga nagdidibik, alright? So debiking is not allowed, alright, in animal welfare circles plus the Philippine National Standard. Bawal po ang minumutilate ang any part ng ating livestock. Okay? But sabihin niyo bakit merong parang cases na kailangan ng debiking. Usually po 'yan sa commercial areas, so commercial growing cages. Alright, na parang isang malaking football field lang yan pagkatapos dikit-dikit ang mga manok. Doon po nagdidibik. No? So if you ask me, di ba, yung commercial chickens that are heavily high density growing areas, more likely po nagdidibik yung ating mga gumagawa nag-grow po ng mga 45 days. Alright? Again, for the Philippine National Standard, wag po tayo magdibik dahil yan po ay disallowed. Okay. Second one, ayan, chicken pox. So meron pong fowl pox, okay, chicken pox, no. So ito po ay parang ayun, yung tsura may bulutong siya, no. This is viral po, no. So the thing is there's no direct way to address the virus, but except for address the symptoms, no. And in this case, ito po ay nilalagay namin. Nagbo-boil kami ng oil with chili, di ba? Tapos parang habang medyo malagamgam pa yan, saka namin ina-apply. Alright, again, kapag merong incidents ng bulutong, tanggalin nyo po sa main growing area ang mga offending na manok o yung mga manok na meron pong bulutong. Alright? Okay. So, simple steps, no? Simple steps. Again, take note of biosecurity natin. Again, ano yung points natin for biosecurity? Limit po the number of people that go into your pens. Okay? In fact, well, I'll touch on the feeding as well. Especially for layers, nangingilala po ang mga manok. they are smart enough to understand and to know who their primary feeders are. So kapag palit po kayo ng palit ng tao para magpakain o magpatuka ng manok, bababa po ang productivity ng ating layers. And that's a bad news, di ba? Kasi dapat parati pong peak laying condition yung mga layers. So kung bawa ang sa amin, kapag meron kang pens na naka-assign, 1, 2, and 3, it's the same person who actually feeds them morning and evening. Or at least, at very least, dalawa. No? Para meron namang karelyebo. Pero kilala sila pareho ng manok. Kasi oras na iba po ang pumasok uh, sa ranging area at para magpakain, bumababa po ang productivity. Again, isolate and limit the number of people that go in. Meron po tayong copy ng vaccination program. I think I discussed that the other episode. I'll review that again. That's fairly important. And kapag may sakit nga po, please consult a veterinarian. No? Wag natin pong sarilihin na, isa lang naman yung namatay. It can be the start, habang start pa lang ng outbreak, madali pong ma-address natin. No? At saka, it's your responsibility as a grower to other growers. Kasi po, sa manok, oras na nagkaroon ng outbreak, ang hirap po talagang pigilan ng outbreak sa manok. No? And that means wiping out entire flocks. No? And that's your entire investment. Okay, so ito example ng mga protocols namin, no? So nabanggit ko sa inyo, 'di ba? Tinamaan kami ng NCD or Newcastle's disease in 2016, no? So which wiped out around 2,500 of our layers. So since then, hindi kami naging purist and we have this protocols na po. So let's start with the broilers, yun po yung madali eh. So normally on day 5, we have NCD, all right, on Newcastle's disease, B1B1 na vaccine plus IBD, no? The IBD is actually a respiratory disorder rin. Pinapatakan po ang mata, no? So that's anywhere between day 1 to 7. We just say day 5, no? At most, di ba? But if you're in the middle of Newcastle's disease central, ibig sabihin may incidences in your barangay, pagdating pa lang po ng CCU, lagyan niyo siya. So day 1 pa lang maglagay na kagad. Next, day 14 po is actually your booster. That's your NCD po, Lasota po. No? Nabibili po to sa mga poultry shop. All right? Again, with IBD po, no? Parang booster shot po siya at day 14. No? 14 to 16 days is fine. Pero kami on day 14 namin ginagawa. Now, after that, okay na po yung ating broilers. Dire-diretso na po yan until the time they are actually slaughtered. We do some level of deworming, natural deworming. Nilalagyan po namin ng kakawate at saka seeds po ng ipil-ipil yung aming flock at around 35 to 40 days. Para at least bago sila katayin, natanggal na nila yung mga seeds sa sa katawan nila, at saka na-deworm na rin siya, no? In the process. All right, for chicken layers, no? For chicken layers naman, again, it's the same protocol from day 5 and 14 po on NCD. Day 45 po, nilalagyan po namin isa pa ulit na booster siya ng NCD Lasota. Alright, again, eye drop po. Eye drop, mas malalaki na yan, mas mahirap habulin. So in this case, water na lang po. Yung withdraw namin actually sa umaga, yung water, tapos at some point magpapainom kami. Ganun rin ang gagawin namin sa hapon para siguraduhin everybody gets it. No? But again, para makasigurado, eye drop po. Sa mata po ang bagsak ng ng ating ng vaccine. On day 60, all right, naglalagay po kami ng fowlpox vaccine, no? Bakit po namin nilalagyan ng additional? Kasi po yung additional vaccines. Kasi po ang ating layers, they have expected life po in service, no, in the farm to maybe about 2.5 to 3 years old, no? So that's the first 6 months plus around 18 to 24 months of productive life, no? I say 2.5 years kasi po kami, we don't cull our chickens after 2 years. Ang ginagawa namin, nilalagay lang namin sila sa isang ranging area. Kumbaga yun yung ating mga senior citizen. Okay, they have earned their their service, di ba? So we just let them be there until fiesta. So binibili na po ng kapitbahay yung aming mga culls, no? Anyway, yan po. So day 60 is fowlpox vaccine. Day 77 po. All right, so just under ilang buwan na yon, 30, about 3 months yan. Yung coryza naman po. No, again, coryza po is a preventable disease via vaccine, no? Medyo mahal nga lang po ang alam ko, pagkakaalam ko doon sa Coryza vaccine. Pero sulit po yan dahil um, it guarantees next to productive life po ng ating layers. And then day 100 is another booster for NCD. Sabi naman, bakit parating merong NCD na vaccine? Kasi po wala po siyang cure ang NCD. Ano po 'yan, kung hindi mamatay sa sipon ang manok, ang lieg po ng ating mga alaga ay babaliko o mababaliko ko. Ayan, no? So magbe-bend po siya. At pag nakabenda po yung lieg ng chickens, hindi na po yan makakakain ng ayos. Mamamatay po yan. Slow, agonizing death po yan for our chickens. No? And then at day 112 or around 4th month, we deworm them. No? So we use a deworming agent or medicine, a deworming. Diba? Pwede rin naman pong, again, yung mga katulad ng ipil-ipil at what's this? Kakawate. Pero kami po, nag-deworm kami using yung over-the-counter medicines. And then, yun na po yun. That's actually the last time that bibigyan nyo siya ng kahit na anong vaccine or gamot. Okay? Kasi po, pagdating ng after a month, di ba, day 112 is around 4 months plus. Usually, nag-start na po mag-lay ng eggs by 5.5 months yung ating flock. No, and during the time, ayaw natin na any residue ng ating vaccine or medicine will end up in the eggs. So, meron din po talaga tayong ino-observe na withdrawal period. Okay, yan. So, just a couple of factors, no? Kasama na rin sa tips and tricks po natin, no? If you intend to do free-range chicken production as a business, no? Importante po ang waste management, no? Please make sure na sa lahat ng byproducts and byproduct wastes po are always segregated. Yung pong ating mga namatay na manok, kailangan po ng mortality pit. Okay, so kailangan meron po kayong balon na malayo po sa water source, doon niyo po inilalagay ang inyong mga manok. Ngayon, if low volume pa lang naman, konti pa lang yung mga manok nyo, kailangan po natin siyang ilibing. Alright? Hindi naman natin kailangan tirikan ng kandila, pero ilibing nyo po siya. Huwag po yung kalat-kalat. Okay? Dahil yan po ay magdadala po ng sakit. Not only for the chickens, but it can be vectors for diseases for people as well. Okay? So, records. Okay? Record keeping. Importante po ang record keeping. Bakit po? Dahil dyan po malalaman kung how well you are doing in your business or in growing chickens. So please take note of the breed and the source, okay? Whether that's decaled browns, or let's say Hubbards, or yan po ay Rhode Island Reds, or these are Parawakan or native chickens. Okay? Yung feed consumption on a weekly basis, please write down. Alright? Write these things down. Importante po yan para at least makikita niyo kung ano ang reaction po ng mga flocks in terms of your feeding program. Sometimes po in our farm, we try to vary things. So merong isang batch of chickens, kakayas po kami ng konti, pagkatapos mag-experiment kami if we can do better. No? When I say do better is the chickens way bigger or faster growing siya with less consumption ng feed. So yun po yung pinaka-okay, di ba? Malaki po yung manok, pagkatapos less yung consumption ng feed. Ibig sabihin po, you get more bang for the buck of the way you take care of your chickens. Now again, medications of quarantine birds, okay? Ngayon, yung iba po, gusto nyo talagang i-save yung manok. So kung talagang gusto ninyong i-save ang manok without slaughtering them, gumamit po kayo ng antibiotics, di ba? Hindi niyo lang siya mababrand as naturally grown, no? Yung medications ngayon for quarantine birds, kailangan nyo pong isulat kung ano ang binigay ninyo. Diba? Kasi po, hindi pwedeng tuwing magkakasakit, yun at yun pa rin na antibiotic ang gagamitin nyo. Normally, what we do is we ask our vet, ano yung pinakamahina na antibiotic. Bakit po yung pinakamahina? Kasi if kaya nung mahinang antibiotic yan, when the time comes that you need a more potent antibiotic, gagana pa rin siya. Ang likelihood po kasi na if you use a very strong one, in succeeding session sa kailangan nyo po na antibiotic, hindi na po gagana yung iba dahil it's either weaker than the original one that you gave, diba? Or yung meron ng resistance yung bacteria doon sa lugar ninyo, diba? So again, if you're going to use antibiotics, ask for the base one. Okay? Para at least kapag nagkasakit through the lifespan ng manok, especially for your layers, magagamitan nyo siya at some point ng stronger antibiotics at masasave nyo pa yung bird. No? Again, once you put antibiotics or apply antibiotics to your chickens, kailangan pong hiwalay yan dahil hindi na po siya matatawag na naturally grown. Again, if you're not particular about or you don't intend to use naturally grown in your in the way that you market your chickens, then free range pa rin naman siya, which is actually fine. Again, so for production, sa broilers, tinitingnan po namin ang dressed weight or kung live weight nyo siya binibenta, kung ano yung live weight po ng bawat bird. And then we have average them out per pen. No? Again, inventory po is important. Alright? Bakit po importante yung inventory? Kasi sisiguraduhin niyo na yung inyong mga kliyente na nag-aabang ng inyong mga manok or itlog will always have the inventory that they need. Then of course, yung record po ng financials. Bakit po? Kasi dapat alam natin kung magkano nyo ibibenta ang inyong mga alaga na hindi kayo nalulugi. No? And then finally, yun po, mortality record. No? Importante po ang mortality record. So again, just as baseline, for broilers, that's 10% at most. Well, actually 15. Pwede pa kung talagang first or second time yun lang mag-alaga, no? Pero definitely if it's more than 15%, then lugi na po tayo. Alright, so that's the reason why dapat we need to keep our mortality to single digits. For layers, around that po, actually more of 10% lang allowable mortality for layers. Kasi nga, you earn from their eggs. And then, it's a continuous process po over 18 to 24 months. Okay. Yan, sorry. Maintaining records po yan. Maintaining records. So again, I was saying production cost, and then of course you can adjust your operations accordingly. Alright? So let me skip this one. So yan po yung sample po ng poultry records natin. Alright, so mortality, then harvest po. No? So this is actually for meat. No? Kasi it's actually just about 4 weeks lang siya. First 4 weeks po. No? Ay, okay. Balikan ko po natin yan. Alright. Average weight lang po yan, no? Hindi po ibig sabihin every time mag-weigh tayo ng birds ay yung buong flock ang inyong i-weigh. Buong araw na lang po kayo magtitimbang yan. Wala na kayong ginawa kundi magpakain, maglinis ng pen at magtimbang. Kailangan lang po natin dito ng sampling. No? Sampling of our chicks or chickens. So habang maliit siya, mas madaling kumuha ng sampling size. So you can get maybe about 10-15%, no? Kasi madali namang i-weigh ang chicks. As they grow older, pwede nyo naman bawasan. But the point is, there's always a reference point in terms of how heavy your chickens become, no? Based on your protocols or your feeding program. Okay, so sa other success factors, so again, the farm owner, whoever's putting up the business, must know how to produce the chickens. Huwag niyo pong pagbahala sa iba. Tama po, dahil kayo po ay malulugi, guaranteed. Alright? You need to understand the business in order to perform well. Alright? At if you want somebody to help you out, then pareho kayong mag-aral. Diba? Nang kasama nyo o sino man mag-aaral. Again, we talk about good stocks. Alright? So, sa mga humihingi po ng sisiw sa farm namin, wala po kaming sisiw. Okay? At wala po kaming ready to lay chickens. Okay? Kasi marami po nagtatanong sa amin. No? We get at least 10 inquiries. Meron ba kayong binibenta? Sorry po, we are a grower as well. So, end user rin po kami na nagpapalaki for eggs and for meat. Okay? Kumukuha lang po kami sa breeders. Alright? Okay. Market assurance. So again, we always tell farmers, do not grow too much that you cannot dispose of them. No? Again, I raise my hand. I'm also guilty. Kasi excited ako mag-produce. Pagdating po ng panahon, wala po pala akong buyer. That is a sure recipe po of one, losing money and discouraging yourselves from proceeding, no, and growing your business. So ano pong requirement natin? Ideally po, you have a contract with somebody who's going to buy your chickens or your eggs. No? That's fairly important. Again, transportation facilities po, a way to bring your kalakal to the market from their farm to the market. Site ng farm. So normally hindi po namin ina-advise na masyado pong malayo ang source ang farm po nila sa kung saan yung pagbabagsakan, no? Sa bagsakan. Otherwise po mahirap po talaga mag-transport, especially if you talk about live chickens, no? And then finally, compliance to local zoning. Ayan, each LGU po, each local government unit will have its base number kung ilan ang kino-consider nila na backyard. All right? So and it can be anywhere from 20 heads to around 50 to 100. So depende po, no? Depende. Meron po kasing LGU, they're very particular about the smell, no, of the chickens. Hindi po yan na hindi nila pinapayagan na masyado kayong maraming alaga. No? Okay. Um, Alright. So again, compliance sa local zoning. Baka po kayo maireklamo sa barangay. No? Now the thing is, if you grow your chickens naturally, you use natural feed, nagbibigay po kayo ng probiotics, kahit po 5 meters away ang tao, hindi nyo po maaamoy yung inyong mga manok. Mapera na lang po pag medyo umambon, yun, meron konting amoy dahil nababasa yung lupa. But otherwise, hindi po mapapansin ng kapitbahay na meron po kayong mga manok if you grow them naturally. Now, if you use commercial feeds, that's a different story. Commercial feeds po kasi they make use of bone meal, blood meal, and fish meal. Yan po pag nabasa, masyado pong maamoy. Alright? Malalaman po ng inyong kapitbahay na kayo'y nag-aalaga ng manok at yun po, maaari po kayong maireklamo. Okay? Ayan. So, ito po, example lang po na nagko-collect po ng eggs. So, for the farm po, we collect our eggs 4 times a day. You might ask, bakit po? Kasi po para hindi po mabasag. Ganyan po ka-productive yung aming mga manok. So, usually kapag naka-isang layer na siya, so papansin niyo yung ano nito, yung mga nest nila is mga sako lang, no? So, ito pinapalitan po namin yan periodically. Kasi ito po, ayan, light soiling po ng ano, this light soiling ng eggs. And this is a wet rag lang po yan. So, pinupunasan niya na isang beses lang. Alright? Bakit po pinupunasan ng water lang? Meron po kasi siyang, sorry, balik tayo doon. Meron po kasi siyang film ang ating eggs that porous yan eh. Tumatagos po yung ano, may mga holes po yan sa ano, minute holes po where air can pass through. Pag natanggal po yung film, makakapasok na rin po ang bad bacteria at mas mabilis po ang spoilage if we use anything other than water. Tapos, ayan po. So, ang next po niyan for layers mo, no, is basically magtitimbang po tayo. No? So, ito po yung pagtenor. Ito yung nabanggit ko kahapon na yung nakatenor by size is actually better because you can sell the larger ones at a better price. So, just refer to the table that we showed last week, no? Last episode, no? For the appropriate sizes ng ating eggs. So for us po, ang pinakamababa po namin ay small actually. So these are small. Maybe around 60 to 70% is actually medium and large po ang napoproduce ng aming mga manok. Around 15%, 15 to 20% would be XL, yung mga tipong 65 to around 70 grams. Pagkatapos, yung pong jumbo ay yun po yung 71 grams and up. So that's probably around 8% of our harvest. An example rin naman po of layered housing, no? So yung kanina may sako, yun yung una naming version. No? Pero yung mga older pens namin may ganun pa rin. Ito naman, ayan, ito yung mga bago na namin na may kanya-kanya siyang kwarto. This is actually for more denser pens namin para at least pwedeng mamili yung mga inahin kung saan nila gustong mangitlog. Okay? Alright, so this is actually more videos on that, on how it looks like. Tingnan nyo may mga perch, no? Huwag nyo pong kakalimutan ng perch sa inyong housing. Alright, kasi talagang may hierarchy po ang ating mga manok. And they'll use that, no? Saka, pag humahapon po yan sa gabi, dyan po sila natutulog. Alright, hindi naman pwede kasi lahat yan nasa baba. Alright. Alright. So in this case, ano po, what's this slide? It's not actually digital, but this is actually more of what are the types of businesses you can actually do sa free range chicken productions. And obviously, the first one is broiler production, so production po of meat. In this case, kailangan po natin ibenta ang ating manok either as live, no? But somebody else will need to bring it to a slaughterhouse or as dressed chickens. So kung kayo na rin po magdadala sa slaughterhouse, uh, pwede magpakatay. No? So that's one. So you sell it by the kilogram. No? Egg production naman is really simple. Ayan, pag-produce po ng ating eggs. The nice thing about egg production is you have money every day. Basically, hindi naman po kasi tumitigil ang ating mga alaga, mga itlog. So parati po tayo may pagkukunan pa tayo ng funds. For other people, they don't want the rigors of daily production. Breeding naman sila. So what they do is they buy parent stock ng mga F1 to, like yung mga parent stock for let's say decalbs or yung mga saso or hubbards. And then yun ang binebenta nila. So sila ang nagbebenta ng mga day old chicks, no? And then of course processing naman po. Processing naman refers to let's say gumagawa ko kaya kunyari ng tapang manok. Alright? Or let's say lalagay kayo ng binabottle ninyo yung eggs, no? Nagka-hardboil kayo tapos ibinabottle siya, nilalagyan siya ng vinegar or parang pina-ferment niyo yung eggs. That's a type of processing that you can also do, no? One thing's for sure, the sale price per unit when you process is way higher than the raw material, like just a fresh egg lang po or dressed chickens. So if you go one step in terms of processing, mas mataas po usually ang margin. Okay? Alright, so yan po. That's actually opportunities yan. Alright, so we go to our economics ng free-range broilers. No, broilers. So, when we started, like I said, we started off with 150, we ended with just 26. All right, live, no, to be slaughtered, no, at the end of the day. Given that we've actually shared with you most of the facts and tips, no, to become more successful, baka pwede nyo yung first batch ninyo, pwede nyo gawin 100 to 200 birds. But for us, a comfortable volume for our demand is around 350 pieces, and that will be consumed within 3 to 4 weeks, no. So 3 to 4 weeks, mauubos namin yan, tapos nagpaplano na lang kami na batches of 350. Kasi po yung mga pens namin is actually built for around 350 pieces lang. Now, ballpark figures po, no? To produce dressed weight po at 1 to 1.3, no? Assuming ang presyohan po natin ay 230 pesos per kilogram of dressed weight, kung live naman po ay 170. Mortality of at most 10% ang cost niyan to produce. So that's the CCO, the day old chicks, the feed that you will expend, some level of electricity plus labor. Ang total po natin ay 68,000 pesos po for around 350 birds. Alagaan nyo po yan for around 65 days. No? The expected margin po natin is around anywhere between 17 to 25%. On the lower range po of the scale kapag live weight kasi nga mura po siya. But if you do have people who buy dressed chickens, you can sell it at a higher price. Ito pong 230 is conservative. Sa supermarkets po, closer to 270 to 300 po ang free range chickens mo, especially po if these are naturally grown, no? Pero hindi po nalalayo na up to 25% minsan on a good batch ang kaya ninyong maging margin, no? All right, so that's free range broilers for you. Free range layers, no? Okay? So for free range layers naman, we just kept it to 250 pieces per batch. Okay, so ano yung dalawang cost figures dito? To grow your day-old layer chick up to around 6 months is 110,000 pesos. And, so yun yung initial cost po for birds, feed, and labor. Tapos, yung gastos po from 6 months and onwards until ikal nyo siya, usually up to 2 years, ang estimate po namin dyan for 250 pieces is around 350,000 pesos. Alright? Ang laki pala. Okay? Malaki po yan kasi malaki rin naman po ang returns. No? So, assuming productivity of 70%, alright? At ang presyo po ng brown eggs po is anywhere between 8 to 14 pesos. Again, this hinges on the fact that you have buyers to your eggs. Diba? Again, daily po yan. No? Daily po mangingitlog yan. ang expected margin po natin dito is around 38%. So it's pretty well, it's decent actually. It's a decent business. Kaya lang, sinasabi ko sa inyo, there are risks to it. Kasi nga, pag napeste sila, nadaanan tayo ng bagyo, meron pong kapalit yan. No? Kaya po 38% ang ating expected margin. So you'd probably expect yung inyong gross sales to be around conservatively at least 700,000 po for just 250 pieces. Again, over 2 years naman po yan. So divide nyo na lang po kung ano yung makukuha ninyong monthly revenue using well, layers, no, using eggs as a business. Now, what's a good what's a good way to do this, no, is to basically have broilers and layers at the same time. Kasi po yung, kumbaga yung layers, yan yung pong daily nakikita para sa inyo. Tapos, meron kayong on quarters, meron po tayong, kumbaga, broilers that actually pushes your revenue up on a regular basis. But then again, this is on the assumption that you have buyers to your produce. Wag po tayong basta-basta, sige, mag ano tayo, grow tayo ng broilers or layers for the eggs, tapos wala pong bibili. Diba? Marami pong tao sa market ang nangbabarat, lalo na po kayo kung tingin nila kayo ay wala pong choice. No? Again, it is a choice to grow these chickens properly with a market. No? Again, so please do not forget, we need markets for our produce. Okay. Market linkages. So, ano pong types of customers natin? So, ang pinaka-obvious dyan po ay retail. So, yung maglalako kayo. Alright? So, pwede pong sa pamilihang bayan yan or it can be via online. So, usong-uso po ngayon yung online orders. No? Again, this is the retail market but I would think that these are limited in terms of opportunity. Kasi po marami po talagang nag-online selling na ngayon. No? Yun naman pong for meats naman po, you need to make sure that you have the proper facility po to store and to transport yung inyong meats, no? So, ano yung mas okay na market? For me, for us, and that's a focus of all seasons, is to go for institutional buyers. So we've always been business to business right from the start, except when we were still starting. So kasi yun, retail lang talaga yun. But as soon as we actually got customers, and as soon as we have customers who will buy in bulk, then we focused on that. So ano yung markets? So markets include supermarkets po, farmers markets po. We do a bit of retail, but then that's very limited. Siguro po around 10% of our revenue come from retail. 90% actually come from our institutional buyers, from restaurants, from processors, from distributors po. No? So meron mga distributors na ibabagsak na namin sa kanila in bulk, tas sila na po yung magpa-final mile or sila na yung magbebenta sa kanilang end consumers or end users. No? For us, institutional has always been a very profitable venture compared to our retail arm. Besides, we would rather put our investment in people in production kaysa sa retail. And because retail is a different animal altogether, kailangan din po ng skilled people dyan to make it work for you. No? So kung kulang kayo sa tao, po tayo mag-retail unless kayo yung mismong pupunta sa mga markets at magbebenta by yourselves. For this portion of our seminar, we'd like to introduce a digital solution that our companies come up with or developed for small landholder farmers, no, or small farmer organizations. So the name of our company is actually Agro Digital PH, and we actually have an online platform that can be used as a diary or as a planner for your production activities, no, lalo na po sa ating sa pagmamanok, no. So it's called Agro Digital PH. It has a few components, no. One is actually a marketplace as well. The marketplace is actually called Agro Negosyo or Agro Marketplace. This is very similar to your online store, no. That's very much prevalent in the market. Okay. But in this case, we go a step further. No? So apart from being an online platform for trade, for retail trade, we do have a module for producers. No? So for producers naman po, we have a couple of ways to use our platform. One is actually for crops po. So for crops, for high value crops, if you want track production po ng inyong fruits. For eggs, we do that, and for broilers as well. Now, just to provide you some background in terms of how we do things digitally, instead of a paper and pen, if you do have a tablet or a mobile phone, or let's say obviously a laptop, we can go and take a look at yung, what we provide for our broilers. No? So in this case, we group our broilers into specific pens, no? Or by batches, no? In this case, lahat po, instead of a notebook, everything is actually inside our platform. The idea there is it becomes searchable. You can come up with reports. You can actually decide or consolidate all your details, diba, na regarding your production activities, and then you can make informed decisions, no, kung ano yung mga dapat yung i-adjust sa inyong mga protocols. Now, so this is just a simple way of doing it. So, halimbawa, yung program, they have a day old po. So, you just say, nursery 1. So, this is actually basic data entry. So, if you have maybe 10 by 10 po, 10 by 5, so about 50 square meters po, malaki po yun. So let's say ano lang, 2 by 5 po, so 10 square meters. Pwede rin po, by the way, to for chickens and ducks. Let's say for decal brown. So kunyari layers po 'yan. If you have a start date po, start date natin kunyari is tomorrow. And then let's say sabihin lang natin 100 birds. Okay. So once it's in production, yan pwede niyo nang i-prepare niyo kunyari yung mga kulungan, etc. And once you're ready to actually start tracking what's happening there, just click on start recording. Okay, so active status na siya. All right, and then what happens? No, as soon as your pen or your batch actually goes into active status, you can start logging further details, no, into it. So kaya housing 1 and batch, no. Okay? Then move it to production. Ito po yung size po ng ating ranging area. Let's say 10 by 10 for 100 birds. Yan. Okay. Okay. So this is just an example. You have maybe about 100 birds, and then you can actually start plugging in information. So if it's a new record, di ba, meron water date, anong nagdala kayo kung ano yung average weight, di ba? Diba, sample size is 5 birds, average weight is actually assume natin kunyari 100 grams or 150 point. Ayan. So yung sinasabi ko po sa kanila na kailangan natin i-track po yung growth ng ating mga birds. This is a good way to basically get all the details pagkatapos makikita nyo how your flock progresses. The same goes for feed po. Okay, so for feed, pwede po natin i-track siya, no, kung anong klaseng mga feeds, yung brand, okay, number of birds po per gram. If your chickens actually are adults na, let's say for layers sila, usually around 100 to 110 grams po ang requirement niyan daily, no? And then of course you put in the total number of feeds para makita ninyo kung ano yung konsumo natin, no? This actually helps you in keeping track of your expenses para at least pagdating ng time na kailangan niyo nang ibenta yung inyong flock, then you know what's the right price, no, without really losing money. Okay, so that's for feeds. You also keep track of vaccines po, no? So this is just basically sinabi natin NCDB1B1. All right. Si Astra. Day 5, nangyari. Alright? And then of course, mortality. Binibilang po natin ng mortality. Alright? Kung ilan loss, alright, or add, sometimes dadagdag sa flock kapag nagko-combine ng pens, losses ang po kapag talagang patay na siya. Alright? Likewise, at the end of the day, you need to harvest as well. So we keep track of those chickens that you sell. live or dressed, no? Okay? So, again, this one is actually for our broiler piece, no? Uh, Pwede nyo siyang i-track dito. Again, um, we try to digitize the way that we do agri, and this is one way of doing it, at least as far as the database is concerned. Now, apart from that, we also have for egg production. This is naman po for layers natin. Um, we can actually make use of, similarly, it will ask you for the same details. But in this case naman, meron po tayong um, facts po in terms of weekly performance and batch performance po natin. And again, we also keep track po of the feeds that we provide, vaccines, yung pong mortality, because it's important, no? That we track mortality in our flocks para at least natin we know what type of level of productivity to expect. And then yung harvest nito, which is basically your daily harvest. You need to basically collect your eggs on a daily basis. And then kayo na po rin magbebenta nun. Um, okay. So these two tool sets for free range chicken productions, basically for egg production and broilers, is here po sa production, sa agro production module po ng Agro Digital. No, you might ask, is this free to use? Yes po, it's actually free to use. Uh, Normally po, well, we do a subscription service, but really it's for cooperatives and associations that actually use our platform. We don't go directly charge our yung individual farms po. In fact, we encourage these individual farms to form cooperatives or associations para po merong bulk. Yun po yung business model namin. And if let's say you are interested in knowing more about the platform, you can drop us an email. I will provide you with the details, and then we'll create an account for you. Again, so this is actually one way of digitizing the way that we produce free range chickens. All right, so that's actually the last slide. No. Um, Again, marami pong salamat sa inyong atensyon. We appreciate the enthusiasm. We've gotten a lot of questions and inquiries, and hopefully, well, we have the next couple of minutes to basically answer the questions that you forwarded to us.